This video is a guide in helping you choose the right style of cycling shoe for your needs. There's so many different types of variation of cycling shoe out there. Widths, shapes, last, different heel cups, different BOA spacings, different uppers. You get the idea. How would I, if you were in my studio, walk you through what style of shoe would be best for you? We're going to be looking at telling you how to work out, if the size of your shoe is correct, and also to help you work out what sort of width, what sort of BOA spacing, lace pattern that you're actually after. First of all, sort of looking at David here, we've got a foot that is essentially got quite a high volume in the middle, going down into quite a low volume at the front. We've got some width going on if you get like a top-down view here. So the foot shape here really is sort of got like high volume at the front, going down, got quite a broad forefoot. We've got a big toe that is longer than all the other toes around it. This isn't always the case. And we also just have a generally slightly narrower heel compared to the rest of the forefoot. Now, if your foot is a different shape to David's foot, don't worry, because you can still use this guide as such to work out like what sort of things I would think through. And hopefully this is just gonna give you some context into like how you're gonna work out and choose the right shoe for you. So let's just start by having a look at the shoes that David brought in. So he's got these Giros, and this is the first thing. So if you have cycling shoes right now and you're in the market for some, just literally put your foot on top of your cycling shoes. And this is the first real idea that you're going to get as to the suitability of your current existing shoes and how they relate to your foot width. So first of all, we've got the length. So you can put your finger at the end of your toe there. And you told me that these shoes lengthwise actually feel okay. Yeah. And I would expect that because there is a decent, like a sensible amount of length at the end of your foot. But width-wise, earlier on you were telling me they're pinching you.
I feel a little bit narrow, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so like first things first, I would, already be wanting to go for a wider model of shoe purely based on the fact that his foot is overspilling the insole. So let's bang that off there just now. Well, the next thing I'm going to actually ask you really is like what style of riding and what you want out of the shoe. Like, you're like racing or comfort?
Racing.
Okay, so we've got a racing shoe. Now, in that sense, what we're going to be looking for in a shoe is one with a tight and secure heel cup. So you can use this shoe as an example where the heel cup gets dialed in. This is an MX 333 cross-country race shoe. So we can get this nice tight heel cup. We also have a sole that's quite curved on the bottom here. So this shoe is going to be almost cradling the underside of your foot. And there's a little bit of toe kick on the last as well. What that's doing is it's preloading your toes just to kind of get your foot into a nice prime position. Okay, we've got a little bit as well of heel kick. Again, that's just going to help bring the toes down and the heel up. Almost like imagining if you're squatting and you're elevating your heels a little bit. It's going to help you generate power on the push by having you just weighted more into that mid sort of like 2/3 forward on your foot as opposed to pushing down purely on the heels. Okay, so that's the first thing that we're going to be doing. If you wanted comfort shoe, a good example would be something like this 239 shoe. Visually, in some senses, very similar, but the sole of this shoe at the edges is a little bit squarer. The lugs are actually making it harder to distinguish, but you can see that there's not so much curve coming up. The toe kick isn't quite as aggressive on this shoe compared to this one. So the foot's going to rest flatter. The foot's also not going to be supported from the outside quite so heavily. So this kind of more comfort orientated shoe as such, because it's not quite gripping and holding, is going to be maybe not quite as efficient at transferring power because it's going to allow for a little bit more movement of the foot inside the shoe, but it's also going to be a little bit more of a freer feeling. So that would be my first thing in terms of how you think through the last. We've also thought through the width. Now we've got two different shoes here. One of them's a little bit narrower, one of them's a little bit wider. Both of them are wider than the shoes that you came in with. So we're just going to take the insoles out And straight away you can see this wide version of the shoe, like lengthwise again is pretty sensible. The width, we actually have insole that seems to be slightly wider on this wide shoe than this regular one. So on this slightly narrower shoe, there's definitely the tiniest bit of overspill, but I actually think we're gonna get away with that. So we're gonna put both of these shoes on now, okay, the wide one and the narrow one. If this video is helping you, I'd love it if you could drop us a like and also subscribe to our channel. If you have any questions about how you would think about setting your own shoes up, please just drop a comment in. I'll see if I can get back to you as soon as possible. Back to the video. So banging your heel back, doing the ankle first in terms of the ankle boa. Okay, and then the forefoot boa. So let's just compare what we've got. A lot of these things you have to sort of feel yourself, but what I would be doing here is starting to feel the outside of the metatarsals. So the metatarsals are just the bony joints of the outside bony joints of the base of the toes. And actually, if I go down to where the sole of the shoe meets the upper, I can feel that that excess sole is actually creating a little bit of side-to-side movement if I go looking for it in that foot. So for me, that feels quite floppy. Whereas on this shoe that's a bit narrower, it's not a narrow shoe. It's just narrower than this one. But the upper is more like encapsulating your foot. So that's what I'm liking about this shoe over this shoe. Okay, the other thing that I'm liking about this shoe over this one from a general fit sense is you can see the distance of the boas on this one is slightly further. So David's foot has got a higher profile at the top than it has at the bottom, so the tension he needs up here is different to the tension he needs down there. So having that increased spacing just allows more control over that full length span of the foot than this shoe on the left-hand side does. But for me to sit here and tell you that this shoe is a bad shoe, I'd be totally lying to you because it's not, it's still very good. This one's better. There's just more control with the distance and the variation, if you like, in the ability to control how tight that upper is. Okay, so these are two examples of the same length of shoe, but one width and last being slightly more suitable. Now I'm just going to take you through some common mistakes that I see. So if you pop them off for me, please. Now, early on in your shoe purchasing journey, you're going to have to work out like how much budget you want to spend on a pair of shoes. And one of the benefits of spending slightly more money would be there's generally more complex means of tightening up the shoes. So on this pair of legs, for instance, there's two boas. This shoe is £150 more expensive than this shoe with only a single boa. Now, one boa is really always better than no boa, but if you tighten up this shoe, bang your heel back, tighten it up there, and even if you really pull this boa lace away as you go and really work on getting this shoe tightened up properly, you never have that same security. So even if you just stand up just here, same width, so both of them are a little bit wider than would be ideal, same length, and you can just see round the instep, because there's less tension in the upper around here, it's much more likely that there's going to be this kind of movement of the foot inside the shoe on this side, on the right, compared to the left, where if you got this shoe, it probably wouldn't be the end of the world. No. It would just be a bit wider than would be optimal.
Yeah.
But then you want to be careful when you're buying shoes of when you try them on for the first time, if there's this bagginess, especially on the inside, that would really be cause for concern in terms of even if the shoe length and width feels okay, but I'm struggling to control that bagginess. After a while, when you push down on the pedals, that movement is going to start to make the shoe give more and more, and ultimately it's going to end up the shoe like dying early and your foot being less controllable in the pedal stroke as you push down. Cool, take a seat. This would be a shoe that would be comfortable-ish when you first buy it, but then after a short period of time would be, relatively useless. But it seems to be the right length and it seems to be a comfortable width. It's just that extra volume causes problems. So pop both of those shoes off now again. And knowing us, you'll probably have to put them back on again soon. Now, one of the most common mistakes that I deal with in a Bike Fit Studio setup would be I bought shoes that were a little bit longer than I normally would buy because the size below felt too tight across the sides. Okay, and in this case, if you chuck that shoe on just there, this is a size and a half longer than the shoes that we had on a moment ago. Now the width feels okay because this is Lake's narrowest last, okay? Now without going into Lake world too far, Lake have 3 widths. This is the narrowest of their widths, okay? And actually, in this size and a half too long a shoe, the width doesn't feel that bad.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. But the length feels like it would be problematic, okay? And then if you take this shoe off from me, okay, and we pop the insole out, put it on the floor, okay, and then we start to visualize, this is the first and then the fifth, so that's the big bony joint of the big toe, big bony joint of the little toe, and you can see how far back the ball of the foot is on this insole. Okay, now slip your foot out. If you can visualize where the cleat would need to be based on the foot length on this insole, and then if we overlay the shoe, kind of go back to those points, you can see that the ball of the foot would be sitting really far behind where the actual drilling of that cleat hole is. So what that's going to do is make it very, very hard for you to actually control what your foot's doing through the whole pedal stroke. And that's going to lead to pedaling toe down, excessive foot movement, kind of more acute angles of the knee and hip over the top of the pedal stroke, all from just buying a size shoe that's too long. See it all the time, be very careful. If the shoe that you're trying on seems too narrow, the worst thing to do is to buy the size up, buy the size wider. And if that model of shoe, as nice as it may look, doesn't offer a wide version, then just buy a shoe that has a wide version. Like Shimano has some wide versions, Lake has plenty of wide versions. So yeah, just be careful with that. One of the things that is maybe an oversight that a lot of cyclists don't necessarily think about would be a lack of support inside the shoe. So right now, I'm cutting up a set of insoles that I've just measured against the insole of the shoe that fits you best. Now these insoles have quite a supportive instep and really more to just give your foot a proprioceptive guide. So if I put that insole underneath your foot, it's just filling the void underneath your arch. And basically when I'm like, I want you to push down through your foot, you've got more feedback to your brain about where that foot actually is, purely because we've got some contact between the underside of the foot here and the shoe itself. Now, because this whole foot structure is going to be pushing through, the ankle itself is going to be more supported because this is going to be compressed in. So that heel's going to be moving around a little bit less as well. And when that heel isn't moving and that forefoot can relax and you're pushing through that midfoot, literally it's going to light up a whole load of connection. It's going to feel so much more connected. So these insoles that I put in your shoes just there, these are just virtual bike fitting insoles that have been made in collaboration with Masterfit. If you're based in America, you can buy these from virtualbikefitting.com, or if you're based in the UK or Europe, you can buy these insoles from edinburghbikefitting.com. Both links are in the description. Thank you very much. As I drop these insoles inside the shoe, really all I'm doing is just making sure that they're sitting flat at the front and they're not going to be curled up. I think also it's funny because the way that the insole sits, sometimes the weight of your foot helps it just sort of like squidge down to the bottom that little bit more. Now when you stand up here, what you should notice is that the whole shoe, even up the inside of that whole arch, should feel like it's connected to the bottom of your foot. So we've got enough volume in the shoe to allow like a low volume drop-in orthotic to fit well within the shoe without us having to crank this BOA system up too hard. The shoe should feel secure. It should feel like there's enough length still to wriggle your toes around, and you should feel that the ankle itself is really nice and secured back. Really, that summarizes in essence what I would be looking for in a shoe fit. I'm looking for a shoe that is just going to effectively be the best fit for the individual based on their needs, based on the shape of your foot. And that's the process that I would work through, and I hope it's provided you with a little bit of value that you can use next time you're sizing up for your own pair of cycling shoes. We've actually just cut a set of these virtual bike fitting insoles for David's shoes. He's keeping these shoes for the winter and he's going to be getting a wider pair of shoes next year. But yeah, if you just chuck them on and let me know how you feel about them, be interested to get your thoughts.
Completely different in terms of the feeling to the originals,
Yeah.
but it's actually unbelievable how much sort of like the planted feeling is going through my leg
Yeah,
on both sides.
exactly. I think that the difference they provide is they allow you to speak to your whole foot.
Yeah.
So rather than just pushing into what feels like a void, you get more activation in the leg. You can feel exactly what you're pushing into, which is
Yeah.
your whole foot. And then because the shoe is so tightly connected to the bottom of your foot and your whole foot movements,
Yeah.
any little bit of extra effort you put into the pedal is directly getting transferred because there's no movement in your foot now. It's just that direct feeling of connection.
These are making my previous ones feel really flat.
Yeah, like the stock
now-
insoles.
I sort of feel like I have
Yeah, like the
really
combination.
something to push into now.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas that's really just a showpiece as
Yeah.
opposed to anything that's providing real support.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem. Thank you.